Hello, and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book through the ever-expanding... That's not true anymore. No, it is true.
True again, I guess.
It is true again, the ever-expanding Dragonlance series of novels. My name is Jonathan Howard, and with me, as always, is my good friend Shivam.
Hello.
And today, we are doing Chapter 5 of Book 1 of Dragons of Spring Dawning, The Chronicler and the Mage.
Book 1 of Book 3. Oh, man. These are good chapters, though. I like these chapters a lot.
Yeah.
They both set up, after the real wreckage of the past few chapters, it's nice to have both an interstitial breathing and also there's a lot of plot in these chapters. There's a lot of content that then later on becomes the basis for so much in the setting. Chapter 5 here is called The Chronicler and the Mage, and the conversation between Astinus and Raistlin is monumentally epic.
Well, even just introducing the little bits that we learn about Astinus in this is like, wait, what is going on here? Like, who is this guy? Like,
oh yeah,
how does he have this power? And
one of the great mysteries of Dragonlance.
It's very mysterious.
The fact that it's still a mystery of Dragonlance. But one thing that Margaret calls me her Astinus because I'm the book that memorized, that has all the data of everything in Dragonlance. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, she signs her books to me. It's like, to my Astinus. And I'm like, okay, that's sweet. So basically, we're introduced here. We see this Roman statue-looking bust of a man with curly Caesar hair, writing with a quill on his scroll, in the scroll here in the intro art. And we're introduced to this dude named Astinus of Palanthas. Now, to explain who Astinus is, we have to explain a little bit of the cosmology of Dragonlance, like we did way back 3 years ago or whatever at the beginning, is that in Dragonlance, there are gods. There are 21 of them, 3 pantheons. We know the good pantheon is led by Paladine and his wife and his children and whatever. The evil pantheon is led by Takhisis and her sundry spouses and children. The neutral pantheon is led by Gillian, the book. The book, which is the Tobril scroll that Astinus writes in. And
so the book itself is the deity?
It's like the Guru Granth Sahib for the Sikhs, right? The book is the representative of God. But
okay,
it's his, not just his, he's got a corporeal form or whatever Gillian does. But his symbol in space, his zodiac is, Paladine's is the platinum dragon. Takhisis is the 5-headed dragon. Gillian is a book that they both rotate around.
Got it.
Gillian here, the god of neutrality, the god of balance, he helps create the world. He has the entire knowledge of what has gone on, where we came from, where we're going, how in Tracy Hickman's creation mythology, there's an creator who is like God. That is the and Gillian has his text that explains what God's creation is, and Paladine and Takhisis are maintaining whatever. That was a weird post facto thing he added, but it does kind of help make sense of it all. But ultimately, the point though is that we've got this dude Astinus, who is, as far as we know, has been sitting in Palanthas since the dawn of time, writing in his scroll everything that happens in the world, which is kind of insane to think about. It's a really cool idea of here's the chronicler. He doesn't do anything. He just makes notations. And we're told that, at the end of time, he's going to take his book and lay it on the
altar
in front of the gods or whatever, the altar. Effectively, is Astinus Gillian? Is he the representative of God on Earth just sitting here?
Is he like Fizban?
Yeah. Is he like Fizban, basically? Or is he an avatar of Gillian? Is he the son of Gillian? Is he just a demigod who works on the behalf of the book? We don't know. And we are not given to know necessarily. Certain stories in the course of time go one way, certain stories go the other way. But more or less, the end result is kind of the same. This dude is immortal, is omniscient, and writes a lot.
And it seems like he's lived forever, so it seems that the deities know not to mess with him.
More or less. Obviously, if you're trying to overthrow the deities, he's going to be somebody that you want to knock off or handle. And later on, when we run into that kind of chaos, Astinus does get messed up. And when we move to the 5th age, when all the gods disappear, so does he. But it's more relevantly, it's like this dude, we're given to know that he's been here since the beginning of time. He predates Palanthas. He predates the library that he was writing in. So you kind of wonder, like, what was he doing when it was dinosaurs walking around Krynn, or when it's like, just ogres and elves and stuff. But anyways, what we learn over the course of this chapter here is that at some point in history, someone gave him an orb of true seeing, which allows him to see effectively like a TV or the internet or something, everything that's happening everywhere. And like we see little samples of what he's writing in the book. Like the chapter starts, Astinus is in study, he's writing. Somebody opens a door. He writes down, "This day, as above, after watch hour falling 29, Bertram entered my study." And it's like, wait, is that what he does? Is that everything in the book? Like while he's writing the events of happening, he's also just noting somebody walked in the door or whatever. Like you would make sense that if there was an office of Astinuses who are all, focused on different things or whatever. But I guess that's what the librarians of the Library of Palanthas are doing, right? Like he writes notes and then they go and research and fill in the notes and actually make them into cohesive
narratives,
ideas. That's why when you go to the library, there's like infinite encyclopedias, and they're not just all full of this time at, falling watch 38, I picked my nose. It's like, Tracy Hickman, though, by the way, has this explanation of like the time on Krynn, which is super weird. Which is each of the hours in the Palanthian day are named. The two noted in the text here are after watch hour and restful hour, respectively. The hour itself was divided into two sets of 30 minutes. Falling, referring to the minutes from the top of the hour down to the bottom half of the hour, and climbing, referring to the minutes from the bottom half to the top. Unlike our own system, however, the hour is considered to start at the bottom of the clock. It's not as difficult as it first sounds, however, since it has a direct Earth equivalent. Restful hour was around 9 o'clock p.m. That brings this case, restful hour climbing 29, would be equal to saying 29 minutes before the hour of 9. Or after watch hour falling 30, on the other hand, would be equal to saying 30 minutes past the hour of 8. And I'm like, that's not easier, dude. That's not easier at all.
That's very complicated.
That's very complicated. But if I had like a chart or something, I could figure it out. But nonetheless, Astinus is sitting here and he's writing on stacks of parchment. And it was like decades after I read this that I learned what parchment actually is, which is like, dried and scraped sheepskin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like just what the Jews used to write the Torah on.
Well, it's what a lot of people used before paper was readily available.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You write on skins.
Except for in Egypt, they used papyrus, which just comes from a certain type of reed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The papyri reed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, wax tablets and whatnot. But yeah, it makes sense to write on animal skins. And if you take the skins and you stretch them out really thin and scrape them very thin and like let them dry, they can become, I don't know, very easily preservable writing material.
It's also one of the reasons why like books were so expensive for a long, long time.
Yeah. You have to kill a lot of animals to write a book, man.
Well, and you have to do all that treatment and of the paper and everything. Yeah.
I saw a really fascinating video about the last dude in America who makes parchment, and it showed him having to go through and scrape it and thin it out and everything. I'm like, that's so gross and also really, really cool. And I've seen rabbis get to do like the writing of the scrolls and stuff. It's very, very neat. But that was very clearly what Tracy was going for with the scrolls here. Was he would definitely, he calls it the Aber Tobril, which is basically his Torah. And it's like, the guy's writing in a scroll very much like writing in the Torah here. Because like Astinus is compiling the histories, right?
Chronicles, A History of Krynn by Astinus of Palanthas.
Yeah, what could that be? Astinus is sitting there writing. Somebody opens the door and he goes and Bertram walks in there. Bertram, we find out, over the course of the next 30 years, becomes basically the most famous librarian. There are 3 books written, Bertram's Guides to Krynn. He's just a really fun little character who's just here forever. A very nervous and confused librarian. Not confused, but just upset librarian because of all the stuff that's happening all the time. Bertram comes in there and like, Astinus is like, this day, as above, after watch falling 30, Bertram spoke. Bertram's like, I regret disturbing you, master, said Bertram faintly, but a young man is dying on your doorstep.
And then he writes, died on the doorstep.
And then he's like, this day, as above, restful hour climbing 29, a young man died on the doorstep. And then he's like, get his name so that I may record it, figure out the spelling, get his age, etc., etc. And then Bertram's like, I have his name. It's Raistlin, who comes from Solar Township in the land of Abonatinia. This day, as above restful hour climbing 28, Raistlin of Solus died. And then Astinus stops writing. He looked up. Raistlin? Of Solus? Yes, master, Bertram replied, bowing at this great honor. It was the first time Astinus had ever looked directly at him. Even though Bertram had been with the Order of Aesthetics, who lived in the Great Library for over a decade. You don't bother the master, ever. And then you can tell that Astinus is shocked because he repeats the word Raistlin and then drops ink on his page. And he's like, God damn it. And if you've ever used an ink pen that's had to blot out, you know how absolutely annoying that is. It is just the end.
Oh, yeah.
And Bertram's like, maybe one of these new clerics we've heard about could come and help him, which is interesting. That sentence unto himself is very interesting, where he's like, one of these new healers who worship the goddess Mishakal. And you're like, oh, Goldmoon's been busy, huh?
Now I'm realizing it here. The gods went away, but like Astinus kept writing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been alive this whole time.
Mm-hmm. That is part of why there's a confusion about what is Astinus.
Why aren't people worshiping Astinus?
Most people don't know he exists.
Okay.
Because why would you care? If you're a farmer out in like, Ishtar or whatever.
Yeah.
Why do you care about some snobby librarian 100 miles away or like 1,000 miles away from you?
He hasn't gone out of his way to be like, look, I live forever. You should worship me. I'm the one with the power.
He doesn't leave the building. He doesn't talk to anybody except for like the mayor once in a while or whatever. In the very early days before people kind of calcified, there were the notion that maybe Astinus is an office. Maybe it is the title of the person who is the head librarian who sits and writes, and a person dies, a person lives, and another Astinus comes and takes his place.
Like the Dalai Lama, right?
Yeah. Or maybe the Astinus, or like the Pope, right? Or maybe the Astinus is like an elf or an ogre or someone who's very long-lived race. Maybe he's a polymorph dragon. Who knows? But he's just been there. And the thing is, most people just aren't allowed in the library. And if they are, they go to the public-facing areas and not where the head librarian is. The average person who is not like a mage is not going to have any idea who the hell Astinus is. And I'm sure if you tried to worship him, he would probably just stare very coldly at you and then go back to work and you would get nothing out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there wouldn't be any point. Like, kind of the aesthetics kind of do, it seems like. They hold him in real revered.
If they don't worship him, they are definitely treating him like the way they would treat a guru, which is with like utmost respect, touch his feet, offer him food. It's basically, yeah, he is a representative of the divine on earth is what he is for these people. It's like nerd god,
Astinus tells the assistant to bring the young man in and find him a room. And like the assistant's like, wait.
Nobody comes in.
Yeah. And Astinus says like, I'll meet with Raistlin at the end of the day. If he lives. Bertram leaves and he goes back to the other members of the order and instructs them what to do. And like, they're all stunned.
Tracy has a note here in the annotated book as well. It's like, while Astinus captured the overall tapestry of Krynnish history, his aesthetics penned the treatises providing deeper details on people, places, and incidents described therein. Astinus demanded fairness and neutrality in all things from his followers, telling the aesthetics that their purpose was to preserve so accurate a record that the people of future generations could read and then decide the truth and matter on their own. Astinus would tell the aesthetics, tell the readers what to see and what to hear, but don't tell them what to think. And I'm like, oh God, okay, buddy.
An impossible task.
Yeah, like you can't not editorialize. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, who's the one living and who's the one dying? What is Astinus recording, right? Like, whose death does he not pay attention to? This comes up later in Legends too. And then the scene shifts over and we open up with Raistlin's internal monologue where he's like, I'm dying. And then he's like, the knowledge was bitter to the mage. Lying in bed in the cold white cell where the ascetics had placed him, Raistlin cursed his frail and fragile body, cursed the tests that shattered it, cursed the gods who inflicted on him. He cursed until he had no more words to hurl, until he was too exhausted to even think. So here he is, basically lying in a bed in a random monk cell in the library. And he's like, I'm dying, and this sucks, and I hate everything about this. For the second time in his life, he is alone and he is frightened, which is basically the only other time that's ever been true was during the test, right? And even then, he notes to himself, he's like, was I even alone? Because there was this other voice I could hear. And it's like, what's going on?
thinking a little bit of what that voice might mean.
Yeah, at this point.
He's starting to get maybe a sense of the voice had come, how maybe he was never alone. Helped him now, helped him leave the ship. He thinks like, oh, the dragon orb could save me, but I'm too weak to use it. If I tried to use it now, it would take control of me. For some reason, he thinks or he knows that there is something in the library that will save him.
Well,
he doesn't know what it is, but he says, right, where is it? Perhaps there he could find the means to extend his life. He had to talk to Astinus. He had to gain admittance to the Great Library.
Well, yeah, because when he was communicating with the dragon orb on the boat, the dragon orb's like, hey, go to the Great Library. There's something there. You'll find the key, whatever that is, right?
Isn't this because Astinus took, when Palanthas, or when one of the towers of wizardry was being taken over, didn't they give Astinus all their books? So like there's a bunch of secret works of the greatest wizards from before the cataclysm.
All of the books were given to Astinus to watch from the Tower of Palanthas and the Tower of Ishtar. It's kind of weird. Like, you would think that they would have just kept those in their own tower, like in Wayreth or whatever. But at the same time, when all 5 towers are under siege from like the king priests and stuff, putting them in like a neutral safe space where books are going to be taken care of, probably smart. And they never went back to get them.
I don't think wizards trust each other, right? I don't even know if the wizards at...
Hell no, they don't.
Ishtar trusted the wizards at Wayreth or the wizards at Palanthas.
Absolutely not.
You could hide them maybe, but where's a better place to hide your, I don't know, hundreds of books when they're amidst thousands of books?
Right. And that's the other thing is like, these books are like the personal spell books of, some of the greatest mages of all time. And you would think maybe it would be better to leave them under lock and key. But then putting them into the Library of Palanthas is both the safest place and also the most nobody's going to get in your place.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to ever see those books again unless they have a desperate need.
It stands out that none of the wizards alive today have been able to go back to Palanthas and be like, hey, we would like those wizard books, please.
Well, I mean, it could also be that they just don't need them, or they're arrogant enough to be like, what could be in those books that I don't have? Or whatever it is, right?
Or Astinus has just told them no.
Yeah.
Right? Like, nope, they don't belong to you. They belong to the wizards who at the tower in Palanthas.
Yeah.
Have you walked into that tower? We're going to learn about that later, but that tower is still there. There ain't no wizards in it.
He's like, look, man, if you are the true master of this tower, you are welcome to come back and take them. Just put your seal right here. Oh, you're not? Oh, gosh. Well, it's kind of like, hey, do you have your 2-factor authentication? No, you don't. Sorry, buddy. But yeah, so Race is sitting there and he's frustrated and he's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Then suddenly, the aesthetics are like,
No, he dreams. He's too weak to drink his tea, and he dreams of Karaman, right? Like, oh, Karaman could help me. And then he realizes that, like, oh, wait, Karaman's dead.
Yeah.
No one can help me. It's just me.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting scene, though, where he's sitting there like, oh, I've been so dependent on this guy my whole life that now I'm in a place where I could desperately use him. And what did I do? I flushed him down the toilet. Right? Literally threw him to the bottom of the whirlpool.
Karaman would take care of me. Karaman would not let me die. Well, that ship has sailed right into the
into the maelstrom. Well, yeah, it's like, hey, guess what, man? You wanted independence that badly? Here you go.
Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah, that's actually really funny to me.
He passes out, and when he wakes up, one of the aesthetics and Astinus is in the room. And Astinus like looks him over really carefully, and then he nods, and then Raistlin's just like looks at him. But Astinus is an unsettling character.
Yeah. First off, before we get there, though, one thing I do like is that in this cell that he's in, there's a paragraph which says, "It was evening. Lunatari's red light glanced through the window, a shimmering bloodstain upon the wall." I really, really like that. In this series, Margaret and Tracy take the time to actually remember that one of the moons is bright red and is going to make everything look hella weird.
Yeah.
It's almost like the sky is under halogen bulbs all the time, like the old bright orange ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that does something to a person, right? Like, think about if you're just walking around at nighttime and everything's just glowing pinky orange. Like, how weird would that be, right? This is actually really interesting, right? Like, Raistlin sitting there staring. He wakes Master, said the aesthetic. "So he does," remarked the man imperturbably. Bending down, he studied the young mage's face and then smiled and nodded to himself, almost as if someone he had long expected had finally arrived. It was a peculiar look, and it did not go unnoticed by either Raistlin or the aesthetic. I am Astinus, the man spoke. You are Raistlin of Solus. I am. Raistlin's mouth formed the words, his voice little more than a croak. Gazing up at Astinus, Raistlin's anger returned as he remembered the man's callous remark that he would see him if he had time. As Raistlin stared at the man, he felt suddenly chilled. He had never seen a face so cold and unfeeling, totally devoid of human emotion and human passion. A face untouched by time. Raistlin gasped, struggling to sit up with the aesthetic's help, stared at Astinus. Noting Raistlin's reaction, Astinus remarked, "You look at me strangely, young maid. What do you see with those hourglass eyes of yours?" "I see a man who is not dying," Raistlin, who could only speak through painful struggles to draw a breath. "Of course, what did you expect?" the aesthetic chided. "The master was here to chronicle the birth of the first upon Krynn, and he'll be here to chronicle the death of the last. So we are taught by Gillian, the god of the book."
Raistlin says, "Is that true?" And then Astinus just shrugs and goes, "My personal history is of no consequence compared to the history of the world. Now speak, Raistlin. What do you want?" Whole volumes are passing. Like, look, I gave you time, but it's short. So get to the point.
Yeah. Think about how insane the time, like getting time from the guy who's literally watching history pass must be. Like,
that's how you know this is an important meeting. And it's how, in future chapters, when Laurana is going to also meet Astinus, and that's again how we know that
this is a big deal.
If you are going through your life and all of a sudden the chronicler of your world shows up and he wants to talk to you, or he decides to talk to you, that's a pretty good indication that you're probably a very important person, even if you don't know you're a very important person.
Right. In the Wheel of Time version, you are a tavern. You're a person who is dragging time around you to change, right? Even in our world, even if there's not somebody sitting there recording all of human history, you still know there are people whose time is insanely valuable. And when they give you a few minutes of their time, you're like, I must not waste this opportunity.
In the Belgariad, if Belgareth or Polgara show up in your life, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Either something very good is happening or something very bad is happening. Raistlin sits there and he's like, I beg you a favor. My life is measured in hours. Let me go studying in the Great Library. And Bertram's like, hell no, are you kidding? Nobody gets to do that. And then Astinus just looks at him and he's like, do what you will. And he turns and starts to leave. Bertram is stunned, like dead stunned. And Ray's like, hang on a second, man. You asked me what I saw when I looked at you. Now I'm going to ask you the same thing. I saw that look on your face when you bent over me. You recognized me. You knew me. Who am I? Who am I?
This is so good. Astinus is so stone cold.
What did you see? Astinus looks back, his face cold, blank, and impenetrable as marble. You said you saw a man who was not dying, the historian told the maid softly. Hesitating a moment, he shrugged and once again turned away. I see a man who is. Oh, this is so cold. God damn, that is one of my favorite lines in the whole saga. One of my absolute favorite lines in all of Dragonlance. It's like, you see a man who's not dying. I see one who is.
And then it's like, and with that, he walked out the door. And
boom. Get wrecked, buddy. Oh my goodness gracious.
And then we jump to Raistlin. He's in the Great Library. He's reading through all these spell books. And he keeps pushing. He pushes it away in disgust because every book he's read so far ends with this line here. Having completed these requirements to the satisfaction of your masters, we give unto your hands this spellbook. Thus, with the key, you unlock our mysteries. But doesn't know what the key is.
Yeah.
And everything else is unreadable, right? He needs the key.
It's like the cipher that you need to unlock the words inside the book, right? They're all written in code, basically. And it's like, you have the code. Good luck. For literal decades, people were like, what the hell is the key? What is he looking for? Is there a physical object? Is there a USB stick he plugs in that makes it work? What's going on? And Margaret and Tracy eventually said the key is knowledge itself. There's an understanding you get that allows you to then decode what these powers and these like things are.
And this is just one of those things. And I think the cover on it here is that it was so common, right? Where is it? It's so common that they didn't bother writing down what it was, right? Because it's like, who wouldn't know what this was?
But there is that, but there's also a little bit about well, wait a second. I mean, this is something maybe more 2025 than 1985. But it's like, yeah, if I've got a book that I've encoded to keep people from reading it, no, I'm not going to write the key in the book. Well, the whole point is to lock the book. Why would I give you the key right there? Raistlin is so frustrated. He's failing his wisdom checks here of just like, hey, idiot, they're not going to put the password in the book that's locked by the password. Why would you do that? Like,
yeah. Well, he thought maybe it would be somewhere else, right?
Yeah, or that there would be something to lead him to go somewhere.
Yeah. He could follow a trail. He keeps over and over again that comes up. That's with the key you unlock our mysteries. That's with the key you unlock our mysteries. He gets super frustrated. He casts a spell. He screams in frustration. His magic comes with anger. Explosions and gales of wind are heard. The assistants all run to fetch Astinus. They're worried that the young mage is destroying the library.
Well, yeah, if a crazy guy is lighting stuff on fire, you're definitely going to run inside of a book full of paperwork. Are you kidding?
Yeah. So Astinus shows up and he waits outside the room where Raistlin is. He keeps doing his chronicling until for it to settle down. And then the door opens, Astlin walks in, and Raistlin's lying on the floor. There's papers and scrolls, tatters around him. There was some fire. He walks over to him and Raistlin says, the key, it was so common, it was never written down. Everyone knew it, and now it is lost. Here it is. The key, Raistlin gasped through white lips flecked with blood. Lost in time. Fools. His claw-like hand clenched. Anger, the only fire that burned in him. So simple. Everyone knew it. No one recorded it. The key, all I need, lost.
So this ends your journey, my old friend, Astinus says without compassion. Raistlin raises his head, his golden eyes glinting feverishly. You do know me. Who am I? He demanded. It's no longer important, Astinus said. Get wrecked. But one thing that's really interesting, though, is that if you go back a page where, Raistlin is going through these books, he's looking at all of these spell books that he's reading are the spell books of Dentalus. He's got these, night blue spell books like the one he got out of Zaxxaroth. They're all got silver runes on them. They're all high-level black robe spell books. And it's interesting to me that Fisty would go and write out like requirements in the intro to his book of like, this are the things you need to know to be able to read this book. So I'm guessing he had apprentices who were just like, here, I need you to just transcribe and put the boilerplate legal text in the beginning or whatever it is.
And this might also be just a test, right? We know that Fisty is training Raistlin to be his body.
Yeah.
And he wants the most...
We know that now, not in this book we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't know that. But it makes sense that he would set up hurdles, tests for those who he wants to, he could take over them. He doesn't, if you can't cut it here, then it's fine that you die.
Yeah, he'll find another.
Dantalus will find the next wizard and try to get them because he needs someone powerful.
So with trembling hand, Raistlin opened the cover. His eyes devoured the page, reading the same requirements. Only mages high in the order had the skill and control necessary to study the spell recorded inside. Those without it who tried to read the spell saw nothing but gibberish. Raistlin fulfilled all the requirements. He was probably the only white or red-robed mage on Krynn, with the possible exception of the great Parsalian himself, who could say that. Yet, when he looked at the writing inside the book, it was nothing but a meaningless scrawl. So basically, yeah, like, he's hit all the requirements, or he thinks he has, even though he's like a level 4 or 5 mage. I mean, he's very good, but he's not like Fisty good. He doesn't have the key yet. You know who does? Parsalian definitely has a key.
Fisty has the key, but he's not giving it to him. I think this is a test.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, buddy, how badly do you want to live? But Raistlin goes and yells at Astinus later, and he's like, what the hell, man? Don't turn your back on me the way you turned your back on the world. And this is where Astinus loses his mind. And it's like, this is something where it's like, this guy's we've been told over and over again, ice cold, emotionless, like a brick made of marble or whatever. And he's like, I turned my back on the world. Astinus' voice rolled around the library like thunder had rolled previously. I am the world, as you well know, old friend. Countless times I've been born, countless deaths I've died, every tear shed, mine have flowed, every drop of blood spilled, mine is drained. Every agony, every joy that I ever felt had been mine to share. And so this guy's like, I sit with my hand on the sphere of time, the sphere that you made for me, old friend, and I travel the length and breadth of the world, chronicling its history. I've committed the blackest deeds, made the noblest sacrifices. I am human, elf, ogre. I am male and female. I've borne children. I've murdered children. I saw you as you were. I see you as you are. If I seem cold and unfeeling, it is that because that is how I survive without losing my sanity. My passion goes into my words. Those who read my books know what it is to have lived at any time in anybody that has ever walked this world. Ooh, I love Astinus so much. He's so sick.
The last part here. On the last perfect day, Astinus said, his voice shaking, the three gods will come together. Paladine in his radiance, Queen Takesis in her darkness, and lastly, Gillian, Lord of Neutrality. In their hands, each bears the key of knowledge. They will place these keys upon the great altar, and upon the altar will also be placed my books, the story of every being who has lived upon Krynn throughout time. And then at last the world will be complete. Astinus stopped, appalled, realizing what he had said, what he had done. Raistlin's eyes no longer saw him. The hourglass pupils were dilated, the golden color surrounding them gleaming like flame. The key, Raistlin whispered in exultation. The key, I know.
Yeah, buddy, right there, right? Like, people have been asking for, so Margaret actually makes a note in this. She's like, the one question readers always ask about this chapter is, what is this key that Raistlin uses to discover the truth about Fitzendentlis? The answer is provided inadvertently by Astinus, who realizes he's given it away in the last sentence. The answer is knowledge. Raistlin gains knowledge of himself at that moment. He accepts both the dark and the light, and when he does, he remembers the full test, and he remembers the bargain that he made with Fisty. Basically, what has happened here is Raistlin has been given what we would call in like Sanskrit Gyan, which is the knowledge, the divine knowledge that's been passed to you that unlocks your mind. He's been like, it's like he had the trigger moment where he attains pseudo enlightenment here, where he has suddenly had his mind awakened to the knowledge of like, wait, the keys of knowledge belong to the gods themselves, and it's the knowledge of your totality, of your full self. He's had this trauma since the test, because in the test, right, like he's dying, he's losing. Fisty comes and makes a bargain with him that gives him this golden skin that gives him the ability to survive. And then he kills his brother and he blocks off all of this stuff that's happened within the test for his own safety, right? Like the mages and stuff, they lock this away from him, the knowledge of this bargain, the knowledge of all these things that happened to him, so that he doesn't lose his mind.
I don't think I realized it until reading it this time. He just thought it was like an inner voice. Like some people have inner dialogues.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, oh, wait. And he says here, right here at the end of this chapter, I know who you are. Raistlin murmured with his dying breath. I know you now, and I beseech you, come to my aid as you came to me, my aid in the tower and in Sylvanesti. Our bargain is struck. Save me and you save yourself.
Yeah.
He didn't realize until maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe this voice has always been with me. I always thought like, oh, he knew that there was like a guy in his head.
He just thought he had like, inner dialogue. It turns out, no, it's actually a lich living in your brain.
I don't know if he knows it's a lich living in his brain, but he catches on real quick, I think.
Hickman makes a note here, which is like, did we know about Raistlin and Fitzendentlis at this point in the story? Margaret and I maintain that the period when the original Dragonlance was being created was indeed a magical time for us both. There were moments where we felt we were not so much creating the story as simply repeating a history of events that took place somewhere in story form. While we may not have understood it at the time, the depth of the relationship between Fitzendentlis and Raistlin, there's no denying that the foundations of all of that appear here. And he also explained about Astinus, which is that Astinus is a very accomplished man in magical and miraculous arts. One of his traits is the ability to be everywhere at once and experience all that is happening in the world simultaneously. This is a quality that allows him to record every event taking place across the globe of Krynn. He holds the godly trait of being omnipresent. And he's got this sphere of time, which basically lets him zoom in on specific events and when and where, whatever he needs to. So effectively, we're pretty sure he's Gillian in bodily form here. He had made the mistake of, in his emotion of losing control, the one thing that he's got full lock on, and he gave away the game to Raist, who is now suddenly about to go Super Saiyan, you know?
And the chapter ends with Raistlin saying that, and then just lying collapsed on the floor, holding the dragon orb. And then Astinus stares at the body, leaves, locks the door behind him, and it says, returning to his study, The Hysorian sat for hours, gazing unseen into the darkness. So it's like he made a mistake here, right? He realized that, I might have changed the course of history. I'm not supposed to be an actor.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a chronicler, and I have now acted.
It is the journalist's nightmare, right? Like, report the news, don't be the news. Astinus is going to go back, and I love that. Like, he stared at the body in long moments, bathed in the garish purple light of the two moons. Then, his head bowed, he left the silent library, closing and locking the door behind him with hands that shook. Astinus's hands that we are told in the beginning of the chapter never shake. He has to write without blotting for eternity, and here he is just like, oh no.
Do you think he has a premonition of what's coming?
I think he's...
Like, why else would he shake? Or is it just because he became the news instead of...
I think because...
He has to know some of it because, he says, old friend. So he knows some stuff.
But that's because he knows back in time, right? He's been alive through the entirety of time. He knows who Raistlin is. He knows, and he realizes, I just gave Fistendantilus access to this time.
When he says old friend, is he speaking to Fisty or is he speaking to Raistlin?
No.
Oh.
This is not something that we know right now, but what he's doing is he is talking to the soul inside of Raistlin.
Okay.
He's talking to Fistendantilus. He's like, it's like your face might look different, but I know who's coming from inside those eyes.
Oh.
I've had this discussion with you before.
I didn't see it that way. And maybe this is because I'm remembering Legends wrong, but I thought it's just because in Legends, and I could be very wrong, Raistlin goes back in time, like he starts traveling time.
However, he goes back in time to replace Fistendantilus, who already did that event.
Okay.
Raistlin and Fistendantilus, the whole gimmick of, and this is like a spoiler for like 3 books from now or whatever, is that Raistlin replaces Fisty. That hasn't happened yet because we're still in prime timeline. He hasn't jumped back in time to change and branch off to the second timeline or whatever it is. In the original timeline, Fistendantilus was there doing all the things.
Yeah.
He does all the things that Raistlin does. Raistlin just walking in someone else's footsteps. And so when Astinus sees him, he sees Raistlin's body, but he knows that there's only one black robe mage out there who's going to send a dude to die on his doorstep.
Got it. Okay.
He may not know why, or he might not know what's happening, but he's been around long enough to understand that giving the key of knowledge to somebody who is about to die and probably didn't get it on his own is dangerous, right?
Got it.
Gillian works through Astinus, however he works through Astinus. He knows what Takesis is doing. He knows what Paladine's doing, and he's like, oh, this dude is on the balance here, and we don't know if he's going to go to... Like, Parsalien, when he gives Raistlin the test, sets him up with this notion of like, I want you to be the defender of good and learn and have your soul tempered in this fire so you can fight against. And Raistlin's a red robe. He is on the precipice of which way can I go? And so Astinus is sitting there going like, which way did I just push him?
Got it.
It's really fascinating.
It's a big chapter.
Yeah. Is it like a big deal one? This is like a real grunky chapter.
Chapter 6 is Palanthas and some wicked chapter art. But before we get there, we want to thank you for being a listener. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please give us a positive review. And you can contribute at our Patreon page. Benefits include seeing the show notes, getting a shout out, getting the show a week early. And you can find the details at www.patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And one of those benefits is the shout out. So shout outs to our $5 and above patrons: Alexander Louis, Nicholas Campo, Swardango, Chris Andrew, Jason Bledsoe, Brandon Brown, John Merlino Jr., Jane Newoff, Andrew Arsenal, Todd Fisher, Iskander Bilge, Matthew Williams, Kevin Dawn, Eric Schold, Parish Patel, Robert Fisher, Tom Bertram, Scott Williams, The Nine Duncan, Ilya Tulloch, Adam Squires, Diana D., Jamie Gerber, Fiend Folio, and Randy Burns. Thank you all so much. We couldn't do this without your support.
Honestly, it's because of your Patreon subscriptions and donations that we were able to get an actual magic artist to draw our brand new logo, which thank you to Josiah Cameron for doing the amazing artwork. It's unbelievably sick. I was so stoked at how this turned out.
Shiva and I were talking about maybe getting it printed out and framed somewhere because it looks so good.
Yeah, because it's so good, man. Dude, I love Joe. Joe is a dear, dear friend of mine, and his art rules. And we are deeply, deeply grateful to him. The next chapter, though, chapter 6, Palanthas. Here's the thing. They've got this image here, which is supposed to be like, the Tower of High Sorcery. That is not what the Tower of High Sorcery in Palanthas looks like, but that was changed later. The inner art's fine, whatever. You don't need to understand. But like when we're described the tower in later books and stuff, it is like a black hand reaching out with ruby tipped claws on these 5 fingers that are reaching out there with a thumb. Each of the fingertips is a minaret of ruby. Because all of these towers are made to represent all 3 colors of magic. It's really, really cool. We'll talk about that later. I don't want to get distracted yet again.
So we have another transition here. We've now focused on, it's now Taz and Flint. And it's so good because it starts with, I tell you, it was Raistlin. And I tell you, one more of your furry elephant teleporting ring plants living off air stories, and I'll twist that hoopock around your neck, Flint snapped angrily.
Yeah, that is a shout out to the first ever Dragonlance short story that was written by Roger Moore, which featured Tasselhoff putting on a ring that teleported him to this tower of this evil wizard who had like woolly mammoths and everything like that in there. And also was fighting against Demogorgon, the D&D god, before they realized that Dragonlance doesn't have Demogorgon in it. So it definitely is one of those stories where it's like, you can find it. It's in the first short story compilation. They reprinted it later because it was cool to see the first Dragonlance story ever written.
Tasselhoff is like, no, it was Raistlin. And then Flint says, look, I'm not going to argue with it. Just don't tell Laurana. She has enough troubles. And we find out that Flint and Taz have been walking through the city. And then that's when Taz noticed that there was a commotion by the library. And Flint was like looking at the architecture. And so Taz walked over and he saw a young red-robed wizard with gold skin being carried into the library.
Huh. A lot of those on Krynn these days.
And when he tried to go into the library with Flint to prove it, they were denied entrance. Where that's also, the librarians were definitely never going to let
hell no
a kinder into the library.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
They described the city to us.
Yeah, so we're finally getting a look at what Palanthas is like. Palanthas was well worth the look. The city had even been fabled during the Age of Might, about like 1,000 years before the Cataclysm, for its beauty and grace. There was no other city on Krynn that could compare to it, at least not to human thought. It was built in a circular pattern like a wheel. The center was literally the hub of the city. All the major official buildings were located here, and the great sweeping staircases and graceful columns were breathtaking in their grandeur. From this central circle, wide avenues led off in the direction of the 8 major compass points, paved with fitted stones, which were dwarven work, of course, and lined with trees whose leaves were shaped like golden lace year-round. The avenues led to the seaport to the north and to the 7 gates of the old city wall. It was founded as a city called Bright Harbor, which was originally an ogre-run like port for their like shipping and smuggling and stuff. Venus Solemnus and his friends come here and clean it up, and they found a city. They say that this is the place where Paladine first set foot on the plane when he descended as a mortal for the first time.
Oh, not Ishtar?
Not Ishtar. Palanthas. That's kind of why it was named like, it's like it was originally named Bright Horizon, and then it just, time over in time is renamed to Paladine's honor into Palanthas. The thing is, the old city had this wall around it, like the way the old European cities do, and the new city doesn't. And like the Palanthians don't really like walls because walls ruin the overall design. And so nothing in either the old or new city was ever built this way without consulting that overall design, because this is one of those aesthetic cities. It's like going to Florence where everything has to look Florentine. This is the major hub city of Dragonlance. And one of my favorite source books was written by my friend Stan, exclamation point. He wrote the source book of Palanthas, which goes into depth about the city. And it's such a great guide for actually running a game here.
They're walking and talking and arguing about the city. They get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And Taz notices, hey, there's no one around here. What's going on? We should find out why no one's around here. They're only a few blocks away from the palatial mansion of the Lord of Palanthas, but around them, everything is in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
They get to the end of the block and they're like, wait, all these buildings are empty. All these houses are empty. They all look great. They're all maintained, but there's nothing going on here. Flint says, I'm scared. This is not normal. He says, I don't like this place. It reminds me of Darkenwood, that place where Raistlin spoke to the spooks.
That's an interesting way to put it, buddy.
Even Taz starts to feel a little something.
Yeah, and that's how you know that we're in a weird place right now, when Tasselhoff starts getting the willies.
Yeah, that there's more going on here. He says, look, I just want to go to that grove of oaks at the end of the street.
It's probably just an ordinary grove of ordinary oak trees, probably a park or something. Maybe we could have lunch. And he's like, it's broad daylight. We're in the center of the city, for the love of Reorks. Why is it freezing cold? It's winter, the Kender shouted. Flint's like, it isn't winter except around here. But yeah, these two basically start to walk down. They're getting to this giant grove of tallest oak trees the Kender's ever seen. They both of them start to feel a strange chilling sensation that becomes stronger until it's worse than any cold that they had ever experienced, even the cold of the glacier in Icewall. It was worse because it came up from within and it made no sense. Why should it be cold in just this part of the city? The sun was shining, there's not a cloud in the sky. But soon their fingers were numb and stiff. Flint could no longer hold his battle axe and was forced to put it back in its holder with shaking hands. Taz's teeth chattered. He had lost all feeling in his pointed ears and he shivered violently. And Flint's like, let's get out of here, And Taz's like, we're just standing in the shadow of a building. When we get to sunshine, it'll be fine. And he's like, no fire on Krynn's going to warm this thing up, man. We see Taz basically inching his way forward. And then...
And Flint's paralyzed. Flint is no longer moving.
Flint stopped dead. And Taz comes to the edge of the grove, and he's like, here his heart almost failed him. Kender are normally immune to the sensation of fear, so only a Kender could have even come this close. But now Taz found himself prey to a most unreasoning terror he had ever experienced. Whatever was causing it was coming from within the grove of oak trees. So Taz, like, sitting there, he's like, they're just oak trees, they're fine, I can do this.
He goes through what he's faced, right? I've talked to specters in Drakenwood. I faced 3 or 4 dragons. I broke a dragon orb. I was prisoner in a wizard's castle. I saw a demon from the abyss. These are just trees. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. He walks forward, he sees into the center of the grove, gulps, turns around, and runs. And Flint, at the sight of the Kender running back towards him, Flint knew that it was all over. And Margaret here goes and puts all caps. She's like, all over. Something awful was going to crash out of the grove of trees, and the dwarf whirled so rapidly he tripped and fell sprawling. Taz runs over, grabs his belt, and they both just hoof it as fast as they can, get the hell out of the way.
And as soon as they get off of that block, it was warm. The sun shone. They could hear people. What was that? And Kender says, a tower. A tower? I ran all that way, nearly killing myself, and I was running from a tower? I don't suppose that the tower was chasing you. No, Taz admitted. It just stood there, but it was the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life.
So here's one of the things, is like, every Tower of High Sorcery has a grove around it that is meant to keep people who shouldn't be there away, right? Like the Tower of Wayreth has a grove which moves the tower around, so if you don't know where you're going or you don't have a pass in, you will never be able to find it, and you'll be lost forever. The Tower of Palanthas has a Shoiken Grove, which is the grove of pure fear, pure just insanity, and like you're terrified, never getting anywhere. The tower that was next to Kendermore in the ruins has a grove that ramps up your lust and greed and your like emotional, like you're just heightens your emotions to the point that you're basically unable to do anything for just like losing yourself to your passions. The other 2 groves, one was of forgetfulness. Yeah, the Tower of High Sorcery in Ishtar had the Guardian Forest there, which was full of olive trees that would basically make you lose your memories. Anybody who went there just had their brains wiped and not recoverable either. Yeah, so it's like you don't mess with this one. And then what was the Tower of Sorcery in the tower in Daltagoth? It had a grove that caused anybody who come by to it to fall into a deep, deep sleep. So you had sleep, you had forgetfulness, you had inflamed passions, you had terrible fear, and then you had just, you're just not finding it. It's just not happening. You're just going to get lost forever. It's like the maze in Legend of Zelda when you're trying to go through the Lost Woods and you're like, which way do I go? I guess I'm just going to see this forever and it's never going to change. This tower is a big deal tower. Suddenly we get a scene change and we are in the Lord Mayor's house. And the Lord of Palanthas, Astinus of Palanthas, is like, oh, that would be the Tower of High Sorcery, he told Laurana. Because Laurana is sitting there, he's like, no wonder your friend was terrified. I'm surprised he made it as far as the Shokian Grove. And she's like, he's a Kender. It's like, oh, well, that explains it. But that's something I hadn't considered, hiring Kender to go and do the work around the tower. We have to pay some most outrageous prices to get men to go into the buildings each year and keep them in good repair. But then, and the Lord appeared downcast, I don't suppose the townspeople would be all that pleased to see a sizable number of Kender in the city. Astinus of Palanthas is like a Ponzi noble. He's just super rich, super like old money, old world, ruling the city. And Laurana is in there, and she has to wear a fancy ass dress because they don't want to see her bloodstained Solomonic armor.
They don't want to see any armor, right? They're still in denial about the war. Nothing could come to our beautiful city.
Yeah, of course not.
And she asks, what the tower is, and he goes to the window covered in thick curtains. And it's the only window with drawn curtains, and he shudders. He says the tower is cursed, and he opens the window. There's this amazing view. The city's beautiful. It's translucent, glowing white marble, except for one tall black tower with broken minarets, a dark window surrounded by a dark black fence. On the gate, something flutters in the wind. And then he closes the window, and he's like, it's a real shame because this is the best view in my palace, and it's ruined by this awful tower.
Yeah, this evil spike that's just kind of like staking through it, right? But the way they describe the tower is so beautiful, though, right? Like, it's this single tower, and it's made of pure black marble, standing in distant contrast to the white marble of the city around it. Minarets once graced the gleaming surface, but they're now crumbling and broken. And like all the windows are just like eye sockets. But when you see the tower, when it's in its like finality and it's been reborn and reopened, it's like this absolutely stunningly gorgeous building in the middle of this town. And like the tower again was there before the town was, because the mages built it when they first built their orders down the back of the dawn of time. And like the ogres had their little like port where they would do their smuggling and whatever. And then it turns into a city, and sort of like a college town, the city grew around the tower. But you got to think about, what is this place that here we have one of the main towers of high sorcery, one of the locuses of magic on this plane, one of like the 5 places on Ansalon where magic is at its like purest and strongest. And there's no towers on Talatis for what it's worth, and that's a different story entirely. And then we're also told this is where the library is, where Gillian himself has built the center of knowledge on Krynn. And we're told that Paladine took his first steps here. So it's like, what the hell is this specific spot doing? Why is this the
Jerusalem and Rome and
and like Mecca all in one, right? Like just
yeah.
It's just suddenly this like incredibly important spot.
Laurana starts asking like, hey, so what happened with the tower? What's going on with it? And Amethyst starts to tell her, and then who arrives? It's Astinus. Amethyst just goes, oh, well, you know who can explain it better?
The dude who was here at the time?
Yeah.
To Laurana's astonishment, every man in the room rose respectfully to his feet, even the great generals and noblemen. All this, she thought, for a librarian? Then, to her even greater astonishment, the Lord of Palanthas and all his generals and nobles bowed as a historian entered. Laurana bowed too, out of confused courtesy. As a member of the royal house of Qualinesi, she wasn't supposed to bow before anyone on Krynn unless it was her own father, the Speaker of the Suns. But when she straightened to study this man, she felt suddenly that bowing to him had been most fitting and proper. Yeah, why could that be?
And she's like, he seemed middle-aged, but there was an ageless quality about him. His face might have been chiseled out of the marble of Palanthas itself. And at first, Laurana was repelled by the cold, passionless quality of that face. Then she saw that the man's dark eyes literally blazed with life, as though lit from within by the fire of 1,000 souls. They're dropping pretty big hints here that he's not normal.
No, this guy is definitely, like, I think if you went with the assumption that this is Gillian, you would not be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Amethyst's like, you're late, Astinus. How are you going to tell that man he's late? He's never early or late. He's Gandalf. He's always on time.
He said it pleasantly, though with a marked respect, right? Like, I think he's kind of teasing him here. Like, you're late.
Yeah.
And you're never late. You're such a good... He goes, I had business to attend to. And then the Lord, he apologizes. He's like, yeah, I heard about that wizard. That dying guy on your doorstep. I have no idea how he got there. Like, no one saw him in the city.
Yeah. We didn't see anything. I mean, it's like, what about the remains? Do we need... It's like, I know how painful this must be. There are certain health proclamations that the Senate has passed, and I'd like to be sure all is attended to. God, dude.
They're talking about dead people, so, like, Laurana wants to leave, right? Because they don't
talk about, like, corpses like this.
Yeah.
Astinus is like, the elves don't talk about death like a business transaction, dog. Maybe chill.
I'm so sorry, your princess. He's like, please have some wine. And then she says, you were discussing the towers. Can you tell me about it? She's like, he asks, like, well, what do you know about them? And she's like, well, I know they're places of power. I had a friend that is an acquaintance who took the test there. And Astinus says, Raistlin of Solus. And she's like, yeah, how? And he's like, I'm a historian. It's my business to know. And then he starts telling the history of the tower here in Palanthas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, not even the history. He just says he's smart. He doesn't go back to the beginning of time. He just starts with the recent history.
Well, and he says, for its history is bound up in your destiny.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, you there, open the curtain. You're shutting out the best view in the city. As I believe the princess remarked before I entered this. Then is the story of the Tower of High Sorcery.
So basically, I'm going to summarize here rather than reading the whole chapter. But effectively, what's happening here is during Ishtar's reign, when the king priest ruled all over Ansalon, and like him and his minions were the goons of good that were going through and ensuring, like, enforcing conformity and making people like kind of like bow to their power. The mages in their towers were basic, like the king priest is gone. He had subdued the Kenders, he had subdued the elves, he had subdued the ogres. And these mages are sitting there independent in their towers doing whatever they want. And he's like, no, this will not stand. You guys are a threat to my power.
A threat to good, right?
Yeah.
Because there's two orders, red and black, that aren't aligned with how the king priest feels they should be aligned.
Right. If you're consorting with evil, and neutral is obviously evil because it's not good, so it's got to be evil. And if you're consorting with evil, then you can't be good either. So those white robes are definitely evil.
He also says that it's pretty easy to come up with horror stories when young people go into these towers and a lot of them never come out.
Yeah, or they come out crippled, right?
Yeah, but if you fail the test, you die.
Yeah.
So they haven't helped themselves with their PR campaign was garbage.
Yeah.
And so mobs have started to attack them.
Here's what happens during and it's crazy. So first off is that there's this town of Lasarkum, which is south of Ishtar, and the mages there, that was one of the towers run by the Black Robes, and they were being besieged by the king priest's armies, and they're like, you will never take this tower. And they blew the tower up. They broke the stone inside of it that kept all the magic in the matrix and stuff, and ended up not only nuking the tower, but the entire town, which was a huge city, and the kingdom of Lasarkum basically got leveled and wiped out to the point that it's just called the Ruins next to Kendermore. And then they can't find Wayreth. They go to Daltagoth and they try to take it over. And the mage in Daltagoth, they start fighting, and the guy's like, yo, I'm just going to give it to you because I'm not going to fight. And he goes to Ishtar. Well, no, they actually destroyed the tower in Daltagoth as well. They destroyed the tower in Daltagoth. Then he goes to Ishtar, and the king priest goes to Ishtar and demands the thing. And the Ishtarans basically give him the key and say, fine, we don't want any more bloodshed. And then they go to Palanthas, which is like, at the time, it was the most important of the 5 towers. They are like, we don't want to see this tower get leveled because Palanthas is a really important city to us. So you need to give us a tower. And the mage who's in charge of it is basically like, fine, we will give it to you. They start to give him the key to the tower when at the top, Rannoch the Black Robe is sitting there and he's like, hell no, this tower will stay closed until the master of past and present comes to claim it. And he jumps off the tower spears himself on the filigreed fence that is blocking the thing. The fence blackens and twists. The minarets start to crumble. The tower becomes jet black instead of the beautiful black, gray, red that it was. The Shokian Grove, which is already terrifying, gets full of spirits and zombies and just evil monsters, and everybody flees. And they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna leave that one." But then the king priest moves into the Tower of Ishtar.
Yeah, and the Lord of Palanthas wanted to move into this tower, but because it was like the most beautiful building. But no, that black robed wizard put an end to that. And Laurana says, "What's that cloth?" The Lord of the Palanthas says, "Well, we think it's probably the remains of that black robe, but no one knows. And no one's really gotten clothes." And I was like, it's been 300 years or like more than 300 years since that happened. That's some cloth. That's some sturdy, it's magic.
He cursed it, and it's magic. He's locking the door.
Yeah.
His body and soul have been given to lock that door.
Oh, but I want to read the part here, the curse specifically, because it's very important. "The gates will remain closed and the halls empty until the day comes when the master of both the past and the present returns with power." That's setting up a whole another trilogy.
It sure is.
And that is how the chapter ends, except for, Laurana shudders, right? Laurana shuddered, putting her hands to her aching head. She knew that this grim story would haunt her for nights, and she wished she'd never heard it. Bound up in her destiny, angrily she put the thought out of her mind. It didn't matter. She didn't have time for this. Her destiny looked bleak enough without adding nightmarish nursery tales. As if reading her thoughts, Astinus suddenly rose to his feet and called for more light. "For," he said coldly, staring at Laurana, "the past is lost, your future is your own, and we have a great deal of work to do before morning." And that is how the chapter ends.
Quite the lore dump in this chapter. I love it.
Man. Well, in both chapters.
Yeah.
In chapter 6, we learn all about Astinus. We learn a bunch about Fistandantilus, the state of the world, how we meet another avatar.
And it only took till book 3 to get to this, right?
Like, we know Fizban, there's Astinus. It makes me wonder if we ever meet an avatar of Takesis, or is she always just the dragons?
That's a very...
I'm sure I'll learn, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, and then in this chapter, we learn all about the wizards and the curse on the tower, the master of the past and the present. And considering the pace that they were putting these books out, I have to imagine that they were already plotting legends by they were writing this, right? They're putting in the hooks for the next part of the series here.
They're setting a lot of story leads that go forward into different places. It's a D&D book. So what you're doing is you're just basically setting out a bunch of hooks for potential plot lines going forward. They had a limited amount of knowledge of the history of this world, some insofar as they wanted to write the modules and stuff. They didn't necessarily know where they would go with it, but there were any good storyteller, they're going to set up a world. My favorite things in the world are when you're reading a book and they just drop a tantalizing chunk like that. And then you're just like, what does this mean? It's like, well, you get to figure it out, reader. And I love that. I think it's super fun. Yeah, these are some of my favorite setup chapters in the book because we're going, like, the story is picking up now. The story is really like starting to ramp somewhere.
Yeah. Next time, we're going to read chapter 7, Commander of the Knights of Solamnia. But before we go, we wanted to do, as we started last month with our One More Thing, and I'll start. I have been enjoying David Suchet's Poirot series, which is...
Poirot.
Which is a series, it's an Agatha Christie series of books about a little Belgian private detective.
Yeah, very fastidious.
I have not read all the books, but I have almost watched the entire David Suchet series, and I have it on DVD. It's 33 discs, so...
Jesus.
I have been going back to that. It's 13 seasons. They'd made a movie or like an episode, and they're all either 45 to like an hour plus long of every Poirot story. So
I've seen like all the different versions of Murder on the Orient Express and the recent trilogy of movies that came out around him. He's a great detective. I love these stories. They're super, super fun.
But I love this. It was made for the BBC. It's David Suchet's.
Yeah, it used to air on PBS. I used to watch it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that's what I've been diving back into.
For the entire month of August, I sat and every single day, I read an entire complete Stephen Bruce novel. Starting from the first book, Jarrig, I'm up to like book 12 or something. Every 1 or 2 days, I would finish another book and start one, because like I was reading it in a book club thing with a friend of mine, and then I was like, I should just keep reading this series, even though I've got like a whole mess of books. Stephen Bruce is one of my favorite authors, and this is one of my favorite series about a human who basically lives in a world full of elves, and he's a small-time mafia boss in a house that is basically the mafia, and he has to go around, and he's a very good assassin. He's got friends who are magicians, and it is snarky. It is funny as hell. It's got a lot of politics and a lot of like Marxism and like great storytelling. Every story is told in a different kind of voice and a different like tone to match the nature of the house of the characters that it's based around. And it's been going since 1981. It's going to be ending very soon, and it's one of my all-time favorite series.
Oh, he's still writing in the series?
There's 2 more books left, and he's writing them right now.
Got it. I was going to say, because I know you had Jarrig last month as your book, so you just kept going in the series.
I finished it, and then I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep reading, because I had Jarrig as part of a compilation. So I'm like, well, I might as well read the next 2 books. And then once I finish those, I'm like, well, I might as well read the next 2 books and 4 books and 6 books. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to read every book I've got, because they're short and they're fast and they leave off in such a way that makes you desperately want to read the next one.
Very cool.
Since I have them all, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, like, I've got other books I could be reading. There's like a stack of cool detective and noir stories I've been picking up lately. No, I'll save it for the next episode.
All right.
Cool. And with that, my friend, we are going to end this episode of the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening. And thank you, John, for joining me. Next month, we're going to be going into Chapter 7. And as always, you can find us on our Blue Sky accounts. You can find us at our Facebook group. Or if you join the Patreon, you can come to our Discord and come and chat with us. With that, though, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Imperturbably. That's a hard word. I don't know that I've ever tried to say it before. No, we don't need 5 seconds for this.
Oh, we don't? Okay.
Yeah. Poirot.
And then I'll just cut that into the closing and we'll be good.